Ever think something as simple as filling a backyard pond could spark a neighborhood war? That's exactly what went down for me in the summer of 2023 in the quiet suburbs of Willow Creek, Virginia. I flipped on a water pump to bring my dream pond to life, only to find myself squaring off against the queen bee of the local homeowners association, Diane Whitaker. What started as a humble home project spiraled into a suburban showdown, complete with legal threats, a sheriff's visit, and a party that turned the whole town upside down. Buckle up, because this story's got more twists than a soap opera, and if you've ever tangled with an overzealous HOA, you'll want to hear how it all went down. I'd barely had the pump humming for an hour when Diane showed up, striding across my lawn like she was auditioning for a villain role. I'd bought a 3-acre plot with its own well, deliberately outside the Willow Creek HOA's griper, so I thought. But there she was, heels sinking into my grass, her smile so polished it could have been trademarked. Diane, in her early 40s, wore a power suit that screamed, "I'm in charge," her auburn hair tied back like she was ready for battle. Her clipboard was practically a weapon, and her eyes had that glint you'd recognize from years of dealing with know-it-all clients. Trouble didn't just knock, it kicked the door down. "Good afternoon," she chirped, voice dripping with syrupy charm. "I'm Diane Whitaker, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. We haven't met properly." She thrust her hand over my fence, and I shook it, keeping things civil despite the warning bells in my head. Her grip was like a challenge, her stare lingering a beat too long. "I wanted to welcome you and discuss your pond project," she said, eyeing my half-filled pond like it was a crime scene. I introduced myself as Nathan Harper, new to the area, and explained I'd secured all the county permits and double-checked that my land wasn't under HOA control. Her smile flickered, like a light bulb about to burn out, before snapping back into place. "Oh, there's likely just a mix-up with the boundaries," Diane said, her tone sharpening. "The thing is, Nathan, water usage impacts everyone here. We've had drought worries, and a pond this size could strain our shared aquifer. You understand, don't you?" She waved her clipboard at my pond, her other hand clutching her phone like a lifeline. She mumbled about noise bylaws and safety codes, but I calmly countered that my pump was whisper quiet, my water came from my well, and I'd studied every local rule. She nodded, but her eyes kept flicking to her phone, like she was plotting her next move. "I'd recommend you attend our next HOA meeting to clear this up," she said, her good neighbor shtick sounding more like a threat. I agreed to show up, thinking that'd be the end of it. But as I turned back to my house, I caught Diane out of the corner of my eye. Her fake smile was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. She was filming my pond, her phone's red light blinking like a warning. This wasn't about water or rules, it was personal, and I was in her crosshairs. That night, my phone pinged with an email from the HOA, subject line, "Urgent, unauthorized water feature compliance review." It demanded permits, inspections, and threatened penalties. My dream of a peaceful pondside retirement was suddenly a battlefield, and Diane had just declared war. The next day, I turned my kitchen into a war room, piling up county records, surveys, and a faded deed from 1987 that probably hadn't seen daylight since dial-up internet. As a former irrigation engineer, I knew details were everything. After hours of digging, the truth was undeniable. My property was well outside the HOA's jurisdiction, separated by a ravine 60 yards from their boundary. I had the developer's original plans, county maps, and a surveyor's report from when I bought the place. Diane had as much authority over my pond as she did over the stars. I drafted a polite but firm email, attaching every document, and hit send, expecting a reasonable person to back off. Spoiler, Diane wasn't reasonable. The next morning, a hand-delivered envelope was taped to my door. Inside, on crisp HOA letterhead, was a $750 fine for non-compliance with community standards and defiance of HOA authority. Defiance? For proving my rights with facts? The letter called my response hostile and warned of further action. I stared at it, half laughing at the absurdity. Diane was so used to bullying HOA members that she couldn't handle someone saying no. I grabbed my phone, recorded myself reading the fine aloud with a sarcastic commentary, and filed it in a folder labeled Evidence of Harassment. She'd just handed me a legal paper trail. 3 days later, another blow, a certified letter, requiring my signature, threatening a lien on my property for unpaid fines and ongoing violations. A lien could lock up my ability to sell my home all because I dared to fill a pond on my own land. The legalese was meant to scare, and for a moment, it worked. Legal fights are costly, even when you're right. But as I sat by my pond that night, its surface mirroring the moon, I knew this was my home, my sanctuary. Diane had escalated, but she'd also made a fatal mistake, putting her threats in writing. I took a walk around the neighborhood to clear my head and gauge who I was up against. The HOA-controlled homes were cookie-cutter perfect identical lawns, matching mailboxes, no soul. Diane's house stood out, a mini mansion with a sculpted garden and a gleaming SUV. Power radiated from it. Then I met George Miller, an older guy tending his roses a few houses down. He waved me over, his weathered face breaking into a grin when I introduced myself as the pond guy. "Heard you're stirring things up with Diane," he said, glancing around. Over coffee, he dropped a bombshell. Diane and her ex-husband had bid on my land 5 years ago, planning a dream estate. When their business tanked, they lost the deposit and their marriage. Diane showed up at the auction with blueprints, only to be outbid by me. My pond wasn't a violation. It was a daily reminder of her failure. This wasn't about rules, it was revenge. Diane saw my pond and saw her shattered dreams. George warned, legal rights won't stop her. She's been HOA president since the divorce, ruling like a dictator. Most folks just pay her fines to avoid trouble. His words lit a fire in me. This wasn't just my fight, Anna Maria, it was about a neighborhood under siege. Then came the sheriff's cruiser pulling into my driveway. My heart skipped, not because I was guilty, but because a cop at your door makes you question everything. Had Diane found some obscure law I'd missed? Deputy Tom Sullivan stepped out, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I greeted him before he could knock, offering a seat and iced tea on my porch. "I'm guessing this is about my pond," I said, keeping my cool. Tom nodded, explaining a complaint about permits, noise, and safety. "Third pool or pond call this week," he muttered, sipping his tea. Diane was weaponizing the sheriff's office against multiple neighbors. I spread my documents on the table: permits, surveys, maps like a poker player showing a royal flush. Tom reviewed them, checked his database, and after 20 minutes, leaned back. "Nathan, you've done more homework than most lawyers. Your pond's legal, and this land's outside the HOA. This is a personal grudge, not a crime." I showed him Diane's fine, the lien threat, and her email. His face darkened. "This is harassment, plain and simple. That lien letter could be criminal intimidation." He stood, eyeing Diane's house across the street. "Time to have a word with your neighbor about abusing 911. Watching Tom march toward Diane's pristine lawn, I felt a rush of justice. Their 30-minute talk looked heated, Diane gesturing wildly, Tom staying firm. She stood in her doorway as he left, her glare hot enough to start a fire. But I knew a warning wouldn't stop her. She'd double down. So, I decided to flip the script. If Diane wanted to make my pond a community issue, I'd make it a community triumph. I planned a massive pondside barbecue, inviting every neighbor, including those crushed by Diane's rules. The kicker? I'd invite Deputy Tom as my guest of honor. I spent a week hand-delivering invitations, meeting folks who'd been terrorized by Diane. A mom named Lisa teared up, saying Diane fined her $400 for unapproved Halloween decorations. A dad, Mike, said his kids begged for a pool but feared Diane's wrath. An elderly couple showed me a letter fining them for incorrect gravel in their driveway. Diane's tyranny ran deep, and my pond became their rebellion. The party day was flawless, sunny, warm, with tables around the pond and a banner proclaiming Liberty Pond. All welcome. I set it up so Diane's windows had a front row view. By noon, my yard was alive with neighbors, kids splashing, adults swapping HOA horror stories. The vibe was pure joy, like a community waking up. A local blogger posted photos, and Liberty Pond trended statewide. A news van rolled in, filming neighbors venting about Diane's ring. Deputy Tom arrived in jeans, bringing a casserole and charm, joking with kids about his job. "Beats fake 911 calls," he quipped, and the crowd roared. Then, at 4:30, the air shifted. Conversations hushed, kids froze, and all eyes turned to the gate. Diane Whitaker stormed in, suit pristine, papers trembling in her hands, face a mask of rage. "This is outrageous," she shrieked, pointing at me. "This violates noise laws, safety codes, and HOA authority." Papers flew from her shaking hands, scattering like leaves. The news cameras zoomed in, catching her unraveling. Neighbors whispered, "She's lost it. And this isn't even HOA land." A reporter asked, "Why claim authority over non-HOA property?" Diane spun, wild-eyed, nearly lunging at the mic. Deputy Tom stepped in, voice steady. "Ma'am, we've covered this. Nathan's pond is legal. Keep this up, and you're looking at charges for disturbance and false reports." Diane turned on Tom, screaming, "You're corrupt. Eating burgers at an illegal pond instead of arresting him." Then, her mask cracked. "That land was mine," she wailed. "We had plants a mansion, a legacy until it all fell apart." The crowd gasped, the cameras rolled. She'd just confessed her vendetta on live TV. My playlist, as if on cue, blared Sweet Home Alabama, its upbeat twang mocking her meltdown. I grabbed the karaoke mic, voice calm but cutting. "Diane, I know you lost this land in your divorce. I know it hurts. But Liberty Pond is here, and it's not going anywhere." Her face drained of color, papers slipping to the ground. She swayed, the fight leaking out of her. George Miller stepped forward, voice soft. "Diane, let it go. These are your neighbors, not your enemies." Her eyes flickered with something shame, maybe before she whispered, "You don't know what I've lost." She turned, heels clicking unsteadily, and vanished into the dusk. The crowd was silent, then erupted in applause not for her defeat, but for their freedom. Within days, Diane resigned as HOA president. Her meltdown aired on every local channel. Her house hit the market. She moved out of state. The new HOA leader, a kind retiree named Ellen, apologized and invited me to speak at a packed meeting about rights and respect. My pond became a symbol, inspiring nearby towns to fight HOA overreach. A kid named Sophie gave me a drawing of Liberty Pond, now pinned to my fridge beside my county map. 6 months later, I floated in my pond, hearing kids laugh in a neighbor's new pond, another Liberty Pond. The pump's hum was my victory song, proof that one person saying no can change everything. But here's where you come in. Was I right to escalate with a public party, or should I have kept it private? Is Diane a villain, or just a woman broken by loss? Should HOAs have any power over personal property? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if you're Team Liberty Pond, and subscribe for more stories where ordinary folks take on the system. Let's keep this fight alive.